Welcome to Chapter 6, Consumer Decision Making. So in Chapter 6, we're going to talk about the consumer decision process and how that affects not only marketing, the marketing mix, the product, price, placement, and promotion of your product or business. But we'll talk a little bit about, thinking a little bit deeper about your buying habits. Because I think even if you're not in marketing, it can make you a better consumer to understand what exactly is going on around you and how you're being marketed to on a daily basis. So not only is this a good chapter to learn a little bit about how advertisers use it in a professional setting, but it's also good to learn about it as a consumer. So let's jump into it. So what is consumer behavior, right? Consumers' product and service preferences are constantly changing. So marketing managers must understand these desires in order to create a proper marketing mix for a well-defined market. We talked about this in class. We talked about changing that marketing mix to make it more appealing to consumers. Right? Marketing managers have to understand these desires, the needs or the wants, in order to create a proper marketing mix for a well-defined market. And understanding how consumers make purchase decisions can help marketing managers in several ways. So the more we understand about our target segments and the people that we're targeting, the better off we are. So we talked in class about value, right? Value is something that's different to each person, and it's a personal assessment of the net worth one obtains from making a purchase. Now remember, we talked about sometimes people perceive value with a good price. Sometimes people perceive value with a good utility of a product. It's different for everybody, and we have to recognize that. There are three values definitions that I want you guys to know. The first one is perceived value. This is the value a consumer expects to obtain from a purchase. For instance, if you buy something from Apple, right? The Apple brand in your mind gives you a certain perceived value of what you're going to get, right? Sometimes when we buy a product, we're predisposed to think of what type of value it's going to deliver, right? The second definition is utilitarian value, right? This is value derived from a product or service that helps consumers solve a problem and accomplish tasks. Sometimes value can be perceived by how well that product has helped us out of a situation or complete a task that we need to. So sometimes, value is derived from that. We even have a hedonic value, right? This is value that is associated with the senses, pleasures, feelings, and emotions, right? This is value that is obtained by the senses, right? About pleasure, about feelings. Think about a vacation and the value you receive from having an awesome vacation, an awesome trip, versus the value that you perceive that you don't get when it rains or you have a bad time, right? It's a very, very common value model. So these are three value models that I want you to understand and I want you to try to remember. So when we go through the consumer decision process, right, we're going to run through it. There are 5 steps, right? There's need recognition, information search, evaluation of alternatives, purchasing the product or service, and the post-purchase behavior. Now, these 5 steps represent the traditional buying process, but I want you to understand that how somebody moves through these steps can be very quickly. You can skip steps, but each person that goes through this decision-making process moves at a different rate. So it doesn't mean that everybody's going to move through this the same. So let's take a look at it. I love seeing this in a graph, and the book does a great job of breaking this out into more of a graph. So I want you to take a look at this image. First step is need recognition. Again, second step, information search. Evaluation of alternatives, purchase and post-purchase behavior. Important to note on the left that cultural, social, individual, and psychological factors all affect how somebody moves through these steps. If you think about it, everything that we're exposed to as a person, right? Our family, our friends, these things help move us through these processes at each step, and it helps us move through these steps more quickly, right? Because our brain is looking for shortcuts when we're making decisions, right? The human brain is looking for those shortcuts, and our past experiences or our friends' experiences in society, it all has an effect on how our brain can get to make a decision quicker. So let's go through each one of these steps. First step is need recognition, right? You start off with a need or want, right? There's an imbalance between actual and desired states. I need something, I want something. This is the first stage in the decision-making process. Remember, the want is a recognition of an unfulfilled need and the product that will satisfy. Stimulus is any unit of input affecting one or more of the five senses. So sight, smell, taste, touch, and hearing. And think about advertising. Good advertising incorporates multiple senses. So when you're looking at advertising for a beautiful piece of jewelry, right? You want to see something beautiful and possibly hear some beautiful music in the background. You want that. It tends to perform better when you can add multiple aspects of stimuli to any advertising, right? Want, got, gap. This is the imbalance between the actual and desired states, right? The bigger the gap is, the more you want and desire that product, right? The gap's got to be large enough to drive the consumer to take some sort of action. And the marketing manager's objective is to get consumers to recognize that want, got gap, right? Every good marketing manager makes you realize that, hey, I need that product. I really want that product. Information search. Internal information search. This is recalling past information stored in the memory. Remember, we talked about how culture and your families and your friends can all have an influence on you. But in addition to that, your past experiences can have influence on you. I've had Apple products as far as I can remember, and it goes back to having a MacBook Pro that I still have to this day, that I got back in 2005. And I still remember to this day that I bought my MacBook and I was having a lot of problems with it, and it was out of warranty, and I took it back to get it looked at, and the kernel board was broke on it. And I remember that Genius Bar associate looking at me going, "I'm sorry, it's out of warranty. It's going to be around $2,000." And I'm like, "Oh man, how am I going to come up with that kind of money?" And I'm like, "Okay, well, let me think about it." And he's like, "Oh, hold on 1 second," and came back and said, "You know what? Merry Christmas. We're gonna push this through on warranty. Don't you worry about it." I've been a loyal Apple guy ever since, and I gotta imagine that experience has had some sort of a effect on me. Similar to that, my wife went to lunch at Nurk's here in Turkey Creek, and she had a hair in her salad, and that stuck with me. And I have never wanted to eat there ever. I didn't have a bad experience, but my wife had a bad experience. But that recall of internal information affects my decision-making process. External information searches also affect your decision-making process. Non-marketing controlled information can, a product information source that is not associated with the promotion. This can affect your search. And also a marketing controlled information source. So whether it's an advertisement or not an advertisement, These things can affect your information search and how you go about the decision-making process. Customers seek less information or product when there's less risk involved, more knowledge and product experience with it, low level of interest or desire, and having a lot of confidence in the decision you're about to take. On the other hand, consumers seek more information about a product when there's more risk involved, less knowledge and less product experience, high level interest, and a lack of confidence in the decision taken. Let's think about it. Let's think about when you go to the store and buy a pack of gum, right? I'm sure that you're not going online and investigating differences between packs and gums, looking at nutritional values, looking at how long the flavor lasts based off of reviews, and trying to figure out exactly which pack of gum is best for you. It's because you know that there's no risk in buying a 50-cent pack of gum. Actually, it might not even be 50 cents. It's probably about $1 now. And you'll have to excuse me. I'm a little old, so gum was 50 cents back in my day. But there's so little risk with buying a bad pack of gum that you don't really think about it, right? But think about when you bought a car. I guarantee that you guys probably looked online and looked at different car dealerships and looked at blue book values and reviews and all sorts of different things, right? That's because there's more risk involved with that decision. Usually risk is highly associated with the amount of money that you have to give up for a product, right? Because it's a large purchase and it's risky, right? So you can see that sometimes products you have to figure out, is this a high risk product or is this a low risk commodity that we need to use, we people don't need to use a lot of big decision making for. In advertising, when we look at that, right, high risk products, we have to do a lot of marketing for. We have to create, reviews, we have to do white papers and download guides and all sorts of things. However, when we have a product or a service like a pack of gum, we tend to use advertising more, colorful designs, beautiful brand logos and pictures and colors, right? Because people are more able to make their decision based off of those things when there's a low interest involved. Take, for instance, jewelry. If it's fashion jewelry or costume jewelry, if you will, branding it and colorizing it and using ads that are beautiful sometimes helps you sell that product, right? However, if it's an expensive piece of jewelry like a diamond or something like that, usually you back that up. You have like certificates of the 4 C's: color, cut, quality, whatever the 4 C's are. I can't remember them all. My wife will be mad at me, but there's a lot more that goes into buying a diamond, right? So sometimes you have to break it down by the risk associated with the product. Next step is the evaluation of alternatives and the actual purchase of the product. The consumer is ready to make a decision after creating an evoked set. Now, an evoked set is a group of brands resulting from an information search which a buyer can choose, right? It's the group of finalists, if you will. The consumers elevate and compare the alternatives between those. Even though you're not writing out pros and cons, it's going through your head, the pros and cons of each one of that evoked set member, right? You're looking at things, you're using internal information, external information, you're seeing what the environment is saying. And by environment, I mean families, friends, and all that. And that's going into that decision-making process, right? Consumer has to make the following decisions: whether to buy it, when to buy it, what to buy, right? Product type and brand, where to buy it, and how to pay for it. These are all decisions that consumer has to make, and usually the good marketers help make those decisions, right? So plan versus impulse purchase. Planned purchases are made by consumers when they know the product category they want to buy, but wait until they get to the store and go online. An unplanned purchase or a impulse purchase is made by consumers on an impulse. So think about it. If you're selling TVs or you're selling high value equipment, right? Consumers know they want that product category, but they wait to buy it until they go online and research it or see it in person. An unplanned purchase, usually you're in the grocery store and you see a delicious looking chocolate bar and you make that impulse decision right there. Psychological ownership. Consumers sometimes develop feelings of ownership without even owning the good, service, or brand, right? What do I mean by psychological ownership? So sometimes you develop a certain feeling or a feeling of ownership without even owning the good, service, or brand. Think about that. Think about all the products that you have high regards for that you don't even own. I hold Porsche in high regards. I think it's a wonderful product. It's a wonderful good. It's wonderful. I don't own a Porsche, but I do know it's a fantastic product. Cognitive dissonance, right? Cognitive dissonance, otherwise known as buyer's remorse, right? Inner tension that a consumer experiences after recognizing an inconsistency between behavior, values, and opinions. My wife and I just had doors put in our house, and we're looking at it and finding all these little things that are wrong with it, and it's adding up. It's causing a little bit of buyer's remorse, right? Now, consumers reduce this buyer's remorse by seeking information that helps reinforce that, hey, it was a good decision. So, getting a text from a neighbor going, "Wow, those those sliding back doors look fantastic," made me feel a little bit better that the lock fell off yesterday, but makes me feel a little bit better about that decision, right? Also, avoid information that contradicts the purchase decision. So I'm not going to look at any other types of sliding doors right now because I don't want to feel bad about not getting accordion style doors or something else like that, right? And then also revoking the original decision by returning the product, right? Sometimes you return the product without even thinking about it, and sometimes that can help reduce buyer's remorse because you return it. We've all gone through that where we bought something and then we've decided to return it and move on and buy something else. Right? All consumer buying decisions usually generally fall in one of three categories: routine behavior, limited decision making, or extensive decision making. Now, goods and services in these three categories can best be described in terms of 5 factors: the level of consumer involvement, the length of time to make a decision, the cost or good of the service, and the degree of information search, and the number of alternatives considered. So sometimes going through these goods and services and placing them in these 3 categories are based off of those 5 factors. So the level of consumer involvement is perhaps the most significant determinant in classifying buying decisions. The involvement in the amount of time that the effort that the buyer invests in search, it usually means that it is an extensive decision-making process, right? Because of the involvement. Think about a car purchase. However, frequently purchased low-cost goods, they fall in line with the routine response. So think about cost is one factor. Think about time involved to research, right? That is another a good way to help classify those decision-making processes. Limited decision-making typically occurs when a consumer has previous product experience but is unfamiliar with the current brands available. Consumers practice extensive decision-making when buying an unfamiliar, expensive product or perhaps an infrequently bought item. So, if we broke those 3 categories down into a graph, this is what the graph would look like. The factors show that routine purchases take a low involvement, short amount of time. They usually cost very little, and we usually don't ask for opinions, and we don't really compare it with anything else. Those are routine. Those are routine products and routine decisions that we make, like gum. Whereas on the other end, the extensive, right? The extensive decision-making process usually has a product or service that has a high involvement, long time to research. It's very expensive. We're usually, looking inside as far as our past experiences and asking for recommendations. And then also there's a lot of alternatives there. Some factors determining the level of consumer involvement. The following involvement in the purchase depends on the following factors. Previous experience, right? What is your previous experience with that product? What is your interest directly related to those products, right? Those help determine the factors. Perceived risk of negative consequences. As risk increases, so does level of involvement. If there's a risk associated with it, you're going to take more time, right? Also, social visibility. If you're going to be seen in public with these, right, there is usually a high level of decision making, right? It's an extensive decision making process. High involvement can take a number of different forms. It can be, product involvement, situational involvement, shopping involvement, enduring involvement, and even emotional involvement. Previous experience, interest, negative consequences, and social visibility. These are 4 factors determining the level of involvement. And if you think about it, high involvement purchases require extensive and informational promotion of the target market. Think about cars. We were talking about cars, right? A lot of reviews, a lot of downloads, a lot of things that they have to look at, right? Low involvement purchases. If we're advertising for low involvement products, we're going to focus in on coupons, 2-for-1 offers, discounting, right? In-store promotions, beautiful POP displays, point of purchase displays, beautiful ads, right? Those usually help move low involvement purchases. In addition, when we look at the consumer decision journey, right, this is the new journey, right? New journey includes the loyalty loop, right? It compresses or shortens the entirety of the evaluation step, right? It's kind of an interesting concept, is that, the classic journey starts with that five factors and things that we're thinking about, right? Remember the 5 steps? If we go back to the 5 steps, need recognition, information search, valuation alternatives, purchase and post-purchase, right? The new decision-making process, right? If we think about it, it usually begins with loyalty, right? What people are saying about the products, what our experiences, what our friends' experiences with it. There's a lot of factors that affect that. Social factors, right? Reference groups, opinion leaders, family. Individual factors, how old you are, what age and gender you are, your personality. Psychological factors, like how you perceive yourself, how you learn and how you research things, your beliefs and attitudes as a person. In addition, cultural factors, such as your social class, can even affect purchases, right? Your values and culture can affect those. Some cultural influences on consumer buying decisions. So let's dive into this a little bit. Cultures and values. These are your sets of values, norms, attitudes, and other meaningful symbols that shape human behavior and the products of behavior as they are transmitted from one generation to the next. So think about your characteristics. Persuasive, functional, learned, dynamic. Right? Think about your characteristics as a individual. These are learned and passed down to you from your family and your social class. Subculture. This is a group of people who share elements of the overall culture as well as cultural elements unique to their own group. Your social class. This is a group of people in a society. You're considered nearly equal in status. Recognize, regularly socialize among yourselves, both formally and informally, and then you also have shared behavioral norms. So social classes you'll hear all the time. Some of the examples of social classes: middle class, working class, underclass, upper. The top 1%. These are all examples of classes, right? It's interesting to take a look at that. Social influences on consumer buying decisions. If we take a look at social influences, right? Maybe consumers seek out the opinions of others. Consumers also seek out the others' opinions for guidance on products and services with image-related attributes or products which attribute information is lacking or uninformative. Think about that. When you probably were choosing a college, you probably asked your friends about it. You probably asked your family about it. Didn't know much about Pillissippi. Heck, I didn't know much about Pillissippi before I started teaching there. I actually learned about it from a friend at an Intro to Knoxville class, and it sounded like a wonderful opportunity to get involved with a great school. A reference group consists of all the formal and informal groups that influence the buying behavior of an individual, right? This could be your family, this could be your church, this could be your social groups. A primary membership group includes all the groups in which people interact with regularly. And a secondary membership group are those people that you less consistently interact with and more formally interact with. So a good example of a primary membership group would be your family and friends. A secondary membership group would probably be the people that you work with or maybe go to school with. These are people that you don't talk to on a regular basis. An aspirational reference group is a group or a person that you would like to join or you would like to be like. Non-aspirational reference groups, right? Disassociative groups are people that we try to maintain our distance from them, right? These are people that we ask what their opinions are so we can do the exact opposite of what they do. Or we see what they do and say, okay, well, this person has bought this product. I'm going to steer clear of that. For marketers, reference groups have three important implications. They serve as an informational sources and influence perceptions. They affect an individual's aspiration levels. And their norms either constrain or stimulate consumer behavior. And we talked about the types of reference groups, and here's a great graph that the book shows you, right? You have direct and indirect. In your direct group, you have primary and secondary. And then indirect, you have your aspirational and your non-aspirational. Optional leaders, reference groups, and social media groups frequently include individuals known as group leaders or opinion leaders, persons who influence others. We gave you an example of Kim Kardashian, who's a very, very powerful opinion leader. These individuals, like Kim, influence the opinions of others. They're very informed, plugged in, and they're very vocal. They're very active. Kim is very active on social media. Marketers are looking to social media to find opinion leaders, but the sheer volume of posts and platforms makes determining true opinion leaders challenging. We use typically what is engagement rate. So we take a look at the person, the influencer, if you will, the opinion leader, if you will, and we look at what the demographics are that make up their following. If they match our target market, and they seem to have a good engagement rate, meaning number of likes and comments and shares divided by the number of followers. If that engagement rate is high, we say that they have a pretty good engagement rate with our target market. Family is the most important social institution for many consumers, strongly influencing values, attitudes, self-concept, and buying behavior. Moreover, the family is responsible for the socialization process, the passing down of cultural values and norms to children. Family members assume a variety of roles in the purchase process. Right? If we think about it, initiators suggest, initiate, or plant a seed for the purchase process. Influencers are members of the family whose opinions are valued. The purchaser, probably mom or dad, is the one who actually exchanges money for the product. And finally, the consumer is the actual end user. Marketers should consider family purchase situations along with the distribution of consumer and decision-making roles among family members. Perfect example for this is the jitterbug. The jitterbug is a phone for senior citizens to use. It's got big buttons on it so they can see it easily. And it's stripped of a lot of the technology that you and I enjoy on our iPhones and Androids. However, Jitterbug does a fantastic job of not targeting senior citizens as the target market. Instead, they target the adult children of the seniors. Because if you think about it, senior citizens don't have much money, and they're not the ones buying the cell phones. Usually, the adult children say, "Hey, listen, mom, you got to give me a call." So it's interesting that that marketers should consider family purchase situations and how consumers interact with their products. Not all persons are equally influenced in purchase decisions. Consumers sometimes differ in their feelings of connectedness to other consumers, right? Separated self-schema. This is a consumer that perceives themselves as distinct and separate from the others. I'm a trendsetter. I'm not a yes man. I go against the grain, right? Whereas somebody wants to feel a part of the group, right? They want to feel connected. They have a connected self-schema, right? They see themselves as an integral part of the group when they may or may not be. Let's take a look at the individual influences on consumer buying decisions and then wrap it up. Individual influences, right? While individually impacts a person's susceptibility to social influences, factors such as gender, age, life cycle stage, personality, self-concept, and more play an important role in consumer decision-making. While individually impacts a person's susceptibility to social influences, factors such as gender, age, all these things play an important role in consumer decision-making. Most people do not change their gender, and the act of changing personality or lifestyle requires a complete reorientation of one's life. And usually products are sold on this and sold as here's a way to change your life. Think about it. At the turn of the year, we saw a lot of ads about losing weight and getting in shape, right? And people are sold on making that change. Physiological differences between men and women result in many different needs, such as with health and beauty products. Just as important are the distinctual cultural, social, and economic roles played by both men and women. 52% of women have purchased products based on a marketer's portrayal of women. And you ladies that are in this class, I ask you to think about it. Have you ever purchased a product based on how a product is portrayed of a woman using it? I bet you have. Heck, I've purchased a product for my wife based off of that. In addition, a consumer's age and family stage can have a significant impact on his or her behavior. Non-traditional life cycles. Marketers should also be aware that there's many non-traditional life cycle paths that are common today and provide insights into the needs and wants of such consumers as divorced parents, lifelong singles, and childless couples. My wife and I, we chose not to have kids. It seemed like a weird thing for a lot of people, but our lifestyle, we decided we're not very parental to begin with, and we decided not to have children. Single parents. Some people choose to be a single parent, and that's fine. Careers are often created, uh, you know, um, to cope with the dual demands of a career and raising children. And single parents are always on the lookout for time saving products like quick preparation foods and no iron clothing. Back in the 80s, there was no ads that featured single parents or no marketing mixes that were adjusted for single parents. Now it is an accepted status, an accepted life cycle stage. Life events, too. Social media, you can target life events. You can target things such as death of a spouse, and moving, and birth, and adoption. These times of your life are very stressful, and consumers often buy products and take steps to minimize that stress. Personality. Personality is a broad concept that can be thought of as a way of organizing and grouping how individual reacts. Self-concept, or how somebody sees themselves, um, often influences purchases. Self-concept adds ideal self-image and the real self-image, right? How they want to be seen and how they're actually seen. And a lot of times marketers, they recognize both, and they try to sell you on how you are, how you see yourself, and how you want to be perceived. There's a lot of psychological influences when it comes to consumer buying decisions. And I want to talk about Maslow's hierarchy of needs and finish it off there. Maslow's hierarchy of needs is an advertiser's right-hand guide to help sell their products or services and advertise their products or services. And as you move from the bottom to the top, the need becomes more important, right? Physiological needs, hunger and thirst. I'm hungry for something, or I'm thirsty for something, right? I want to buy something that protects me or is safe. I want something that makes me feel loved or makes me feel good. Social needs, right? Esteem needs, self-esteem. I want to feel good about myself. I want to be recognized. I want to be cool. This is very important for people, right? And then finally, self-actualization, self-realization, improving oneself, becoming something, developing into something. This is a great way to identify people's needs and wants and the level that they're on, and then taking an angle of one of these is very important. Most famous, I would say, is the Michelin tire, right? Think about those Michelin tire ads. There's a little baby inside that Michelin tire, right? Safe enough for your family, right? Think about all those insurance commercials, right? Talk about terrible things. They're selling you on safety, right? Insurance sells you on safety. McDonald's and Burger King sells you on those physiological needs and hunger and thirst. Those delicious looking burgers. They never look like that, but they are so delicious looking on TV, right? Think about all those clothes commercials, right? Where they show you all laughing and you're part of the cool kids group and it's great, right? Social needs. Esteem needs. Think about all the weight loss products out there, the Peloton and everything else, right? And think about TED Talks and Masterclass and how they sell you on developing yourself and learning, right? And colleges do that too. We sell you on development and learning. These are all things that we pull from the Maslow hierarchy of needs. So that's a little taste of Chapter 6, Consumer Behavior. Thanks for tuning in, and talk to you soon.